Over the past century, Singapore has almost monopolized the most important shipping transshipment position in Southeast Asia. But now, this landscape is being quietly pried open by a China-led mega-project. China is investing $10 billion along the coast of the South China Sea to build a superport covering 24 square kilometers. In the future, more and more ocean-going mega vessels will no longer treat Singapore as their only preferred transshipment hub. Instead, they will have a new option: Yangpu Port in Hainan, China. This sends a clear signal. The rules of the shipping game in Southeast Asia are being reshuffled. Singapore's president has even publicly criticized China's move, calling it a strategic mistake. So, can this $10 billion superport really challenge Singapore, the world's busiest transshipment hub? And what concrete threats might it pose to Singapore going forward? If you like our video content, please click to subscribe to my YouTube channel so that you can receive all our latest video content. Now, let's get into today's topic. Singapore sits at the eastern end of the Strait of Malacca, right at the linking the Indian Ocean to the South China Sea, and serves as a critical node connecting Southeast Asia with China and Northeast Asia. Although the strait is not wide, it is one of the busiest and most important shipping lanes in the world. For a long time, the main sea routes from Southeast Asia to China were almost default monopolies. Whether cargo was loaded in Indonesia's Java or Sumatra, or shipped for Vietnam, Malaysia, and elsewhere, as long as it traveled along international main routes toward China, Japan, South Korea, or even more distant destinations, Singapore was virtually impossible to bypass. By leveraging the Strait of Malacca, this golden maritime corridor, Singapore effectively operates as a super transshipment hub. In 2024, its port cargo throughput exceeded 600 million tons, and its container throughput ranked second in the world. Simply by providing transshipment and port call services, Singapore can earn tens of thousands of US dollars in service fees from each large cargo vessel. According to industry forecasts, by 2025, Singapore's container transshipment market will be worth approximately $5 billion. In the past, this model had almost no viable alternatives. But now, the rules of the game may be about to change. In recent years, China's Hainan Island, located in the northwestern part of the South China Sea, has gradually drawn increasing attention. Hainan is close to Southeast Asian countries and also has very direct connections with mainland China. This location naturally lends itself to becoming a regional cargo transshipment hub, especially for linking ASEAN markets with the mainland Chinese market. As early as the 1980s, China built Yangpu Port on the island. To date, the port's overall development spans more than 2 decades. In the first half of 2025, Yangpu Port's cargo throughput reached roughly 50 million tons, with total annual vessel calls expected to exceed several thousand. Compared with ports of a similar tier within China, Yangpu Port's performance can be considered steady. However, when compared with global super ports like the Port of Singapore, the gap is very obvious. In terms of cargo throughput alone, Singapore's port is roughly 10 to 15 times larger than Yangpu Port. Based on its current level of development, Yangpu Port still poses no real threat to Singapore. But now China aims to develop Yangpu Port into a player capable of competing with Singapore. Can this really be achieved? As early as 2024, China released an overall development plan for Yangpu Port, with the goal of turning it into an international-level superport by 2030. According to this blueprint, Yangpu Port plans to build 27 port and shipping projects, with total investment expected to exceed 60 billion yuan, or about $9.5 billion US dollars. Among them, the expansion of the container hub port alone involves an investment of 10.3 billion yuan. After the construction of new berths, the port will add an annual container handling capacity of 5.5 million TEUs. By the end of 2025, the first phase of the project will have been completed, bringing Yangpu Port's annual container handling capacity to 5 million TEUs, already enabling it to accommodate the world's largest class of container vessels. At the same time, berth upgrades and renovations are also underway. Once completed, the upgraded terminals will have an annual handling capacity of 5.6 million tons, including a 100,000-ton public grain and oil terminal with an expected annual throughput of 4.5 million tons. To ensure that large vessels can enter and exit smoothly, Yangpu Port has also launched channel expansion and upgrading works, with a total investment of about 1.45 billion yuan. In March 2025, dredging of the outer and middle sections of the port channel was completed, increasing navigational capacity to support vessels of up to 200,000 tons. Once dredging of the inner channel is completed, it will also meet the standard for accommodating vessels of up to 70,000 tons. On the technical and operational side, the port has simultaneously advanced upgrades in multiple areas, including the promotion of low-carbon energy, information-based systems to improve operational efficiency, and more comprehensive navigation safety mechanisms. However, as these projects move forward, Singapore has begun to feel increasingly concerned. Why is that? In August 2025, a foreign-flagged container ship departed from Batam Island in Indonesia's Riau Islands province. This time, instead of entering the congested Strait of Malacca and waiting for transshipment at the port of Singapore as it usually would, the vessel sailed directly across the South China Sea and headed north into Yangpu Port in Hainan. This reflects a structural shift that is already underway. For many Southeast Asian countries, Yangpu Port is becoming an entirely new direct shipping, deep processing domestic sales corridor. A cargo ship sailing directly from Indonesia to Yangpu takes only about 6 days, with in-transit loss rates controlled at around 3%, while overall logistics and time costs continue to fall. The data is changing as well. In the first 10 months of 2025, cargo volumes between Yangpu Port and Indonesia rose by 78% year-on-year. At the same time, Singapore's transshipment volume in the same region fell by 23%, and its re-export trade with China declined by 11.3%, the largest drop in the past decade. Given that re-export trade accounts for more than 30% of Singapore's GDP, this shift could deliver a direct shock to the core structure of its economy. To further amplify Yangpu Port's advantages, China announced in December 2025 the official launch of island-wide customs closure for the Hainan Free Trade Port. Many people's first reaction was to ask whether customs closure meant sealing off the entire island. In fact, it does not. The so-called closure refers to establishing a customs supervision system independent from the mainland. Under this new mechanism, most overseas goods entering Hainan are exempt from import stage value-added tax. These goods can first undergo warehousing, distribution, or deep processing on the island, and only when they actually enter the mainland Chinese market are taxes levied based on the attributes of the final products. This directly gives Hainan operational advantages in cargo circulation similar to those of traditional free ports. In the future, as Yangpu Port continues to be upgraded, more container ships are expected to choose it as a port of call. Beyond institutional arrangements, cost factors are also driving more vessels to bypass Singapore and turn to Yangpu Port. In the past, cargo transshipped via Singapore had to pay additional port handling charges and fuel surcharges, while also bearing the high costs caused by long waiting times. For a 100,000-ton cargo vessel, the annual waiting cost resulting solely from queuing and loading and unloading delays could exceed $1 million. At Yangpu Port, however, digitalized customs clearance processes have compressed this procedure to within 1 hour. At the same time, Hainan's second-line customs system has made the movement of goods between Hainan and mainland China simpler and faster. Moreover, compared with detouring through the Strait of Malacca, the overall voyage distance is reduced by about 400 nautical miles. What truly worries Singapore, however, is the Hainan customs closure policy mentioned earlier. Under the policy framework of First Line Open, second line controlled, and free circulation within the island, approximately 6,600 tariff lines can enjoy zero tariff imports. For many manufacturing enterprises, the most attractive provision is the 30% value-added processing for tariff-free domestic sales clause. As long as a product achieves at least 30% local value added in Hainan, it can enter mainland China free of import duties. Even for lower value-added categories, reaching a value-added ratio of just 9% can already generate considerable profit margins. Such policy dividends are something that traditional transshipment hubs like Singapore simply cannot offer. Another highly impactful change comes from fuel costs. The bonded bunker fuel prices offered at Yangpu Port are significantly lower than those in Singapore. For an ocean-going cargo vessel, the cost savings from a single refueling operation here can exceed 100,000 yuan. When combined with Hainan's 15% corporate income tax incentive, the overall operating cost advantage is further amplified. Under the combined effect of these factors, more and more companies are beginning to reconfigure their shipping routes, shifting refueling, processing, and tax-related operations to Hainan altogether. Over time, Singapore's long-established role as a transshipment hub could be gradually weakened. But many people may wonder, can a single port really pose a threat to Singapore? We cannot deny that, at present, the gap between Yangpu Port and the Port of Singapore remains very clear. In terms of container throughput, Yangpu Port currently handles about 4 million TEUs per year, while Singapore's port has long maintained a stable level of over 40 million TEUs annually, an order of magnitude difference. In terms of registered vessel tonnage, Yangpu Port currently has about 6.5 million tons registered, less than 7% of Singapore's total. By comparison, the total tonnage of vessels registered in Singapore has already exceeded 100 million tons. Of course, Singapore's greatest advantage remains its geographic location. The Strait of Malacca connects the Pacific and Indian Oceans and is one of the most important maritime corridors in the world. Whether it is the main shipping routes from Asia to Europe or trade routes between the Americas and Africa, most global shipping cannot avoid passing through this strait. Today, Singapore has built a fully mature maritime ecosystem. From financial services and insurance support to maritime legal frameworks and global shipping networks, decades of accumulation have created a genuine industry moat. But Yangpu Port does not need to completely replace Singapore. If it can capture even 1/5 of Singapore Port's business volume in regional competition, that alone would be enough to deliver substantial momentum for Hainan Island. Yet whether it is the island-wide customs closure of Hainan or the rapid rise of Yangpu Port, China's underlying objective is essentially to ensure that it will not be choked off at critical moments. In an era of extreme geopolitical uncertainty, any disruption in the Strait of Malacca could place enormous pressure on China's energy transportation and foreign trade channels. Precisely for this reason, China has in recent years continued to advance the Pan-Asia Railway network, whether the Eastern Route, the Central Route, or the already operational China. The logic behind all of them is to build an overland alternative
and then eventually have the other half of the trains.
So, do you think China's Yangpu Port has the potential to compete on the same stage as the Port of Singapore? To not miss out on our future projects and news updates, please make sure you subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications. We will continue to provide you with more exciting and interesting content.